So welcome everyone. This is the Sakai Skins Birds of a Feather. We're going to be talking about possibly moving towards standardization. I'm Martin Ramsey. I'm the managing director of the LAMP consortium, and I'll sort of be, shall we say, facilitating things as we go along here. Because this is a birds of a feather session, I thought it might be good to just sort of lay down some ground rules or some norms. In my opinion, this is a conversation, not a presentation. I mean, I'll talk about a few things. I'll kind of kick things off, and it's just one person's perspective. But after that, I really hope that you'll add to the discussion. And some of you have microphones, so I hope you turn them on. You know, let's talk. Or you can certainly use the chat. Some of you have been using the chat already. And basically, when we get to that point, I'll try to facilitate it and try to capture the main points on a document. We'll see if that works. It's just a We'll try that and see how that comes. And if it's successful, then I'll post that document to the Sakai Virtual Conference site for this particular session. So we'll have that to go back and look at. So for me to sort of kick things off, I thought it might be necessary for me to tell you just a little bit about the LAMP Consortium in case you don't know about us. We're a community of 18 different colleges, universities, and other educational organizations that have banded together to share a single instance of Sakai, and that's very important for what we're about to talk about with skins here. So a single instance of Sakai. We've been live for a long time. We went live on April 26, 2006. We started with release mumble. I don't remember, 2.4 maybe. And we upgraded to Sakai 11 on December 20th, 2016. So we're actually up to 11.4 right now. But that date, December 20th, was important as well for the skin conversation that we're having. Just to give you an idea of how we used to do this in Sakai 10 and prior, we just had a real simple PDF that people filled out. You know, they could attach an image file to use for their logo. They would tell us how they wanted the sites area to look. You know, when it was selected on mouse over, when it was deselected, what color they wanted it to use, whether there should be a boundary box. And then the tools down the left-hand side, again, you know, what background color do you want? What text color do you want? You can justify it left or right, bold or underline. You know, there's a few choices here, but mostly it was sort of selecting colors in these different states when it was selected, when it was deselected, and when the mouse was rolling over it. And so we basically just asked people, because there are 18 different institutions, fill this document out. We'll set you up with a CSS that will run your skin so that each member could have its own skin, ergo its own branding, which is pretty important when you have all these different institutions sharing a single instance of Sakai. So that just sort of gives you a notion of how things were. When Sakai 11 came along, there was this huge promise, in my mind at least, of what could be done now. Because now the skins were being specified by parameters instead of by having to basically compile a CSS from scratch each time you wanted to make a change to the skin. And so the idea I had in my mind, and it may be that I was kind of misunderstanding things, was that we could drive these multiple skins, all 18 of these skins, and it's more than 18 because some of our schools have one skin for their graduate school and another for their undergraduate school, as an example. So more than 18 different skins with a set of parameters rather than with a whole bunch of CSS that had to be recompiled anytime there was going to be a change. And so with all these skins to manage, and they do change. I mean, everybody's skins need to change every once in a while. Your marketing department comes and says, all right, we're changing, you know, the color scheme or whatever, or it's not that red, it's this other red over here. It just seemed like this was an idea that had a lot of promise to me. And I got pretty excited about it and sort of jumped in the deep end and found that it was a little tougher than I thought it would be. So these are just my opinions, but it seemed to me that the number of skin parameters was excessive. It seemed like every time I turned around, I was discovering a new parameter. And the types of objects that can be controlled either overlap or are poorly defined. And I'll show you some examples of what I mean by that. And frankly, they're applied inconsistently. And probably the biggest one of all is that the different tools seem to follow different rules for using the same sets of parameters. And so what works in one tool doesn't work in another tool and so forth. Let me give you some examples so we can sort of chat about this. this is a skin from Johnson University, one of our members, and there is actually a calendar entry on this page that you can't see because it's white text on a white background. Now, all the other text on this page is not white, but this is. How come? I don't know. It's obviously being driven off of a different parameter than the color of the text in every place. Yeah. Okay, Tiffany, is that, I want to make sure, is that a joke or is that, you can't see it because it isn't, you can't see it. That's kind of the point. It isn't being displayed. Oh, hang on. So are you not seeing my screens at all? Okay, all right. Don't know what, all right. Everybody hold your breath. The technology will now work. Okay, good. All right, thanks, folks. So you can, Tiffany, that was great because you said I can't see it. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You can't see it. We had an awful lot of white text on white backgrounds that would just show up in kind of odd places, and so this is an example. There's a calendar entry right there in the middle of the page on Wednesday the 21st, but you can't see it because it's white text. Okay, earlier and later buttons have no text either. Oh, you're right, there they are. Yep. So that's probably blue on blue there for the earlier. Yep, good spot. These are the kinds of things that on December 20th we began to go crazy with. It may be black on blue. Yeah, okay. Well, yes, there was Christmas 2016 was not a happy occasion for me. The button text is white. Is that why the calendar text is white? Possibly. Yes, exactly. See, these are, well, let me show you another couple of examples and then we'll talk about it. Here's a second example. This one comes from Point University and it's on an iPhone, on a mobile device. You'll notice that the sites link and the tools link are both, again, white on white. Here's what's really interesting about this one is that the text on this area uses the parameter $background-color. All parameters, by the way, start with a $sign. So there's a parameter there, background color. Okay, and Tiffany's still seeing the screen with the calendar entry, which means that there's some lag time. So I will tell a joke about a nun, a priest, and a rabbi walked into a bar. No, I won't tell that one. Okay, so it's just a little slow. We'll try to make this work here. I'll delay. So the text uses the parameter $background-color. I've got to believe that that's a mistake because why would you have text use a background color? And the fill in that uses $tool menu color. So we ended up with, in this case, because we happen to have a background color of white and a tool menu color of white that was on a darker tool fill color of white on white. And so this clearly wasn't going to work for Point University, so we had to sort of explore different areas. And let me give you one final example. This one is from Lees McRae College, and this is Samigo, the tests and quizzes tool. And you'll notice on this page that what I think of as tabs across the top of the page, the selected tab is a white background color with a sort of a gray text, and the non-selected tabs are green text with a gray background color. So you can see that across here. But look down here. In my mind, these are tabs as well. Are they not? Call me crazy, but so why is this blue background color here? Why should that not be driven off of the same parameters that drive these tab colors up here? I don't have an answer for that. So these are the kind of things that kind of made me go, ah! Yes. Anyway, so that's kind of those are some examples of the kinds of challenges that I was facing. And so I would like to know what your experience has been. This is the bird of the feathers part. Yes, Tiffany, I agree. Samigo has been particularly tough to deal with, according to the developers. I have heard that as well. But I'd love to know what your experience is, and if you wouldn't mind to turn on your microphones and talk to me, because I'm tired of hearing my own voice, that would be great. And if you're too shy to talk, then type it in the text.
So one of the things that was suggested to me by UVA's accessibility coordinator, which I thought was a really great idea, was that we work together, the UX and accessibility groups, to create a set of sort of templates for skins for universities adopting Sakai. You know, sort of best practice color contrast and stuff like that. To have some idea of, you know, even if you're using your institutional colors, you may need to modify them to make it more accessible, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stuff like that.
Yep.
And maybe some bad examples too, like your white text on white background.
Well, and for us, because we have 18 institutions, you know, I think part of this problem was a hole that I dug for myself, because I basically said, we now have parameters. Just tell me what you want for the parameters and we'll go with it. And woo, it was a lot harder than that. Jolie, you're about to say something, I think.
Yeah, and, you know, I think that, you know, the goal of this UI inventory and new style guide, when you look at examples of the guides that we're going for out there, they all cover accessibility. And there's no way Barbara's group, you know, we're working with the Duke Web Services team, and they have an accessibility expert too. And I don't think they would probably let us get away with not having a section on that. I think what's particularly frustrating for Martin, though, is not that it's not about that. I mean, I think that's really important, but just being able to understand what is controlling what.
Yes, right.
It seems to be just this bizarre tangle of references that you feel like you can't even get to everything. I mean, we found something recently in lessons. I haven't been doing this work, so to see these specific examples are incredibly helpful. And I had an example fairly recently in our own skin where we were in lessons and there was some button that looked, you know, it was red for some reason. I don't know. And I showed it to the person who did our skin, and he said, okay, let me go try to look and figure out, you know, where that's coming from. So, I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that this just needs to be easier. That we need to go back and kind of review. And I am not I mean, I'm making this statement like I have no way that I can do this, but
me neither.
but to go back and maybe tweak this and improve it a little bit so that it's easier to understand what's being referenced, and try to make sure that we're understanding like things that may not have been captured in the skin somehow, right? That are being styled at a different hierarchy than your style sheet or than SAS, or, you know, whatever's applying the style at whatever level. Some things are inheriting those designs from elsewhere. They must be.
Indeed, and I think that's exactly the case. In fact, what I put on the screen now is a live system that I built for our members. Every member of the consortium has one of these. You know, I could step you through and say, all right, so there's Brevard's color choices, and here's Clear Creek's color choices, and there's Davis and Elkin's color choices. But you can see that, you know, we had this notion that we'll just give them a few parameters and they can specify their page background, their primary, you know, and this got bigger and bigger and bigger with sort of special cases and, well, just in case this and that. And, you know, we've tried to keep it as simple as it can be, but it got, you know, this was my dream, that this would be a small screen and you could specify, you know, a dozen colors and you're done. It's not the way it works. So I'm totally with you, Jolie. I'm totally with you. What's somebody else's experience with skin? Why did you join this call? Why are you on this particular session?
Hi, Martin. It's Sean. I feel your pain. Hopefully you can hear me. I worked on our skin before our upgrade to Sakai 11 for quite a few months. And I was working on the Morpheus skin too, prior to that, trying to get some fixes into it before we moved to 11. And I think where a lot of the issues came from is just the complexity of Sakai and how it's evolved over the years, and the lack of standardization among the different tools, or across the different tools. And so I think while they were working on Morpheus, which was a huge undertaking
Yep.
to completely redesign the skin, move it into SAS, and to define these variables, there were certain assumptions made throughout that process from the perspective of the default Sakai skin. And I saw those when I was working on our local institutional skin. So, for example, when they use a particular color in one area and they decide they want to use it somewhere else, they use that variable. So that example that you gave earlier, which was the background color being used as the text, they wanted to use that background color for that text in that particular instance. But rather than creating a different variable for that particular text element and then referencing that background where you set the color, they connected directly to that background color, which when we go to update it to make it a different example, different color, for example, that's when you get these weird cases where a background color becomes a text color. So rather than sharing initial parameters or variables early on, and adding in a level of abstraction, that's where we get into the situation that we've had there.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to at all denigrate the work of the Morpheus group, because it was huge and it's very important. And
for sure, yeah.
in my mind, it's sort of it's the I can now see the promise, but it's not quite there yet.
Right. Yeah.
So it was incredible work. One of the things that I didn't know if this would come up or not, but one of the things that I did was, I started trying to write some sort of design standards that's been kind of referenced. And so I was trying to think, all right, what are the page areas that we would want to talk about? And there are not that many of them, sort of the header, the tool menu, the page body. And then there's element types, there's a fill, there's standard text, there's link text. Okay, that's different. Heading text is different, emphasis text, we need those. But then a button ought to be a button, and a drop-down menu ought to be a drop-down menu, and tab ought to be a tab. And the elements doesn't go much beyond that to me. So it seems like if you're doing a tab, and this is what a tab looks like, you use this for the fill, you use this for the text, and you use this if there's, on the case of mouse over, for example, that changes it maybe. But it seemed to me like we ought to be able to do that. And I when I got into it, I realized that every tool is different. And so sort of implementing something like this would take some serious effort, but I was kind of hoping it might be a good place to start, of sort of knowing that this is what the standard that we're shooting for is going to be. You know more about it than I do, Sean. What's your opinion about that?
Well, it's been my belief for quite a few years as I've worked on Sakai, both as a developer and a front-end designer, that we need better standardization across the different tools. And excuse me while I plug my presentation that we're going to be doing in the next session, but Jolie and I have been working on this project for quite a few months now, maybe over a year now. Can't remember, time goes by fast, which is the Switch project. And I won't take away too much from our presentation, but we will be talking about it in the next session. But it is to try to produce standardization across the tools so that particularly from an interface perspective, there's standard elements, and which would include your buttons and tables and stuff that you've described here. But trying to standardize those things, and that would make applying a skin to it a lot easier, because we wouldn't have this all these differences between two different tools, for example, such as Samigo versus assignments or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, I naively, on December 20th, I naively thought that I can say that I want the color of the background of a tab to be this particular hexadecimal character, this color, and assume that would change it. And all it did was mess up 3/4 of it and worked in about 1/4 of the cases.
So I would hold on to that dream. I don't think we should let that dream go, Martin. I think we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I learned too. So yeah.
But with the evolution of all the tools over the years and how they've been built out of different frameworks and different libraries, and they use different pieces in them, that's where you get that example like you had in tests and quizzes, where the tabs were a different color than for the working and the published versus the tabs across the top. The tabs across the top are more similar to a lot of the tabs across a lot of the page tabs across all the tools, whereas that area down the bottom uses a particular, I believe it's jQuery library. So it's inheriting some colors that we get with these external libraries that we use, such as jQuery and Bootstrap. And those become more difficult to override if not designed properly. And I think as we add more and more of those libraries in, through development of the tools, as more and more features get added to the individual tools, we're going to see more external libraries being added, and that could cause even more
get even harder
for us from a skin perspective. Yes.
I got it. Yeah.
Sorry, not to dominate the
No. This is you clearly. My job was to get the conversation going. I think I've succeeded on that. So, Gabriella has asked a question. Let's just take a step back, because she says, I'm so new to Sakai and I want to hear more about skins. I don't even know where to find it or how to change it. So she joined in to see how people are doing it. And so, Gabriella, the rest of you all, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but we could essentially say that the idea of a skin is that it controls the color scheme of Sakai. I hesitate to say across Sakai, but that's perhaps the idea. So that if your school uses, this school particularly uses a green here, that's kind of their color, and you can see it in their logo. So the skin specifies that, and they've tried to use to echo that green color scheme down here. The selected tool is white on dark green, whereas the unselected tools are green on dark gray, and so forth. They've attempted to make this look like their color scheme. Now, I will say that Melissa Mercer at Lees McRae, who built this skin, she calls this color here, the box that says create from scratch, she calls that the hideous green. She really despises that green because it's a percent screen of this green here, but it comes out a pretty nasty looking color. She'd love to be able to control this as well, but we haven't figured that one out yet, so we're just living with it. But she and I talk a lot about the hideous green. So that, I don't know if that helps, Gabriella, but it's just sort of an idea of what skins are supposed to be able to do. And I guess if I go back to, my little system here, where each of our members can specify what colors they want to use in different places. That the idea of that was that it would drive their skins, and so if they needed to change something, they could change something here. And it's just this is editable stuff. I don't want to edit it because I don't want to change their skin colors, but it goes into Sakai based on this data here. So that's the promise of skins. Somebody else, what's your experience with skins?
Well, just a comment related to, in particular, Samago. Some of what we were talking about earlier in the tests and quizzes presentation is sort of making that tool more modular, and I think some of that work is in working on the CSS for the tool. I know my colleague David Hutchins has done some work on CSS in Samago to improve it, so hopefully that can be contributed back soon. But it's apparently a very difficult tool to adjust the color scheme and CSS on, more than some others, just because of its very complicated nature.
Yeah, I understand that to be the case as well. In fact, that charge could be levied at Samago in lots of different areas, not just skins, but it does. There's a big conversation that's outside of what we're talking about today, which is, do we just completely scrap Samago and start from scratch, or do we really try to make it work, because we just keep running into its limitations? And I don't know which way that decision is going to go. I'm not smart enough to have an opinion about that, but so yeah, okay, thanks. And I'm looking at some of the comments that are here. Francisco says, what about letting users select the skin by preference for accessibility? So for example, somebody who needs high contrast and so forth, that's a fine idea. I think we're a ways away from that because we have to solve some of these more foundational problems first. I really like the idea though. If I'm someone who, well, I have two sons who are colorblind. Some of these skins would be difficult for them, and if they could adjust them themselves, then that would be great. So yes, Tiffany, I see what you're saying. So many things, so many ways to be a part of things. Okay.
How do you manage your different skins across all of the different schools that are under LAMP?
That's a good question. I made some slides just in case that would come up. So this is just a screenshot of what I was showing you in the actual live system that I was demoing just a second ago. So this is a web-based tool that allows each school, when they log in, they see their skins. This one has two, for example. This is their graduate school. This is their undergraduate school. And it allows them to upload a logo. They can upload a different logo if they want to change it. We had one school go from being a college to a university last year. And so they went through a color revision and all that sort of thing. Well, this is the sort of thing that, they would put this in here. And then, and I think this is kind of the question that you're asking, this is that web app. We call it LampCat for the coordinator's administrative tool. But every night, actually twice a day, once at noon and once at midnight, it exports from this basically three files. A skin parameters file, which is in CSV format. So I've worked with Longsight, who does our hosting for us, and so each of those columns in the CSV file is containing one of those skin parameters. We've worked out, we sort of have a dictionary of what the different columns mean. We also export a set of those logos in JPEG format. And then we also have, let me see if I can find an example of this. Maybe the Johnson skin will have it. Oh, shoot, nope, I don't have an example of it. We have, I know what I can do. I'm sharing my desktop. Just a minute here. Hang on. I'm going to log in right quick and show this to you. So here is our instance of Sakai, and here's a course that I use to sort of fake things up. And let me go in and change the skin just to use one of our other folks' skins. Hang on just a second. You can sort of see how this is done. I'm going to change the skin. Here's a list of all the skins we've got right there. I'm going to pick the one from Johnson because I know they have this. And I'm going to finish that. And so now I've applied this new skin. So you see it looks different now than it did a minute ago. But you'll notice that they have this quick links, which was developed by Oxford, which I really appreciate. So their skin allows them to actually have links to their library, their help desk, academic support, and so forth. That's part of the skin specification. And so what we do in our, hang on just a second, let me get this out of the way. Didn't think I would be doing all this fancy stuff here. What we do in our system is this little area here lets them specify the link title and what the URL is that they want to invoke. And then when we export this, so we've got the skin parameters, the logos, and then we have that quick link. And it's a very specific text format that has to be done. And so that all that data is sent by secure FTP to Longsight, and they import that. They have a series of scripts that import that and apply that to Sakai so that the users actually see that in the skin. Okay, let me see what I missed here on some of the, yes, Ron. Let's see, okay, so let's see. Harold says, any thought of creating a CSS group for Sakai? I don't know about that. That's a good question. I have some people that are part of our consortium that would be really good on that. Did Longsight build that interface so I could modify the skin on the fly? Yes, in the long run, they did. I don't think they intended to initially because I had this naive idea that I could just give them some skin parameters and it would happen magically. And it turns out this was a lot harder than they thought. In fact, Kenny Aragorn and I have become best buds because it seems like every other day I'm calling him saying, Kenny, I found another one. And we have to work on what's in here and what the scripts are going to do and so forth. So it's been painful, to be blunt. And then let's see, subgroup or new group. Okay. So a group on continuing the skin conversation. I understand you're sort of lobbying for a group that within the Sakai community that could really work on this sort of thing. That would, there are people on this call that you should know, Harold. Jolie's one of them, Sean's another one, and so forth. They're the folks who really know what's going on. Yeah. So Harold, you know about skin evolutions. That's exactly what's happened to me. I can't tell you the number of tickets I got after January or December 20th. Over the Christmas break and into January. The number of tickets I got that were just dealing with, how do I make this so it shows up on the screen so people can see it? It was pretty rough. Yeah. Okay. Ron's gonna go talk to Alongside. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna say, "Why did you do that? Why did you tell them about this?" Okay. So let me see. Let me go back to my notes that I was making here. Let's say, do we need a CSS working group or subgroup of the UX group? That's probably the most logical place that it might go, I think, but I don't know. And what else can we say in the time that we have left here? I'm trying to look and see what time we have left.
I wonder if we need to put some sort of call out to the community to, because obviously we've all encountered these issues when we upgraded to Morpheus, but I think we all kind of individually handled them. Mm-hmm. So I wonder how we can somehow consolidate all that work that we've already done locally to contribute it all back without mm-hmm. everybody doing it separately. So I guess a kind of a coordinated contribution back, which sounds easier than it will be, but
yeah,
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It might not get us 100% of the way there, but I feel like we've all made certain contributions here and there locally, and I think it might get us a majority of the way there.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to capture this. And bye, Tiffany. She says she's got to go. So, yeah, no, and I got to go too because I've got another one that I have to do. And I'm sorry, Sean, it's not yours and Jolie's. It's competing with yours. So,
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, not to worry, not to worry. Yours is more important. Coordinate our efforts. Okay, good. It will be recorded, says Jolie. Good. Sure, I will share my email. Which one should I give you? I have so many. Probably info@lampschools.org is probably the best one. That's the LAMP specific one. But yep, I'd be glad to continue the conversation. That would be fine. And have I captured what we've been talking about here? I've been trying to sort of just get the main points, and I will post this to our to the Sakai virtual conference as soon as not as soon as we finish because I have to go do another session, but after that I will post this. So okay, good. Other things we need to talk about? I'm trying to think here. No, Frank, Morpheus is not a tool that we have to purchase. Sean, how would you characterize Morpheus? It was more of a project within the Sakai community to try to bring some sort of sensibility to the skin approaches or the whole user experience approach. Was that, how would you characterize it, Sean?
Yeah, it was definitely a project. It actually stands for something, and I can't remember the acronym at the moment, but it was the initiative to make Sakai responsive. So that's what the R stands for, something about responsive. But yeah, it was an initiative that started quite a few years ago. So it's just kind of a code name in the community to refer to the Sakai 11 and further, or moving forward, skin that's responsive, as opposed to the previous one that we had in Sakai 10 and earlier, which we always called those skins Neo. So there's kind of a matrix theme going on, which is why our project that I plugged earlier, and I'm going to plug again right now, because it is yet another Morpheus character. So I was trying to keep with the theme, and there's an acronym for that, which we'll talk about in our presentation, but not to steal everybody from yours, Martin. But
no, that's totally fine.
Getting back to the question, Morpheus is kind of an initiative / project / point in time for the Sakai community as far as how it developed the skin and moved it from just being raw CSS and getting it into a SAS framework so that it could be driven by these variables that Martin has been referring to with the little $.
Yeah. And I see the comments because they're spot on. It essentially with Sakai 10 and before, Sakai on an iPhone was pretty miserable. I mean, it worked, but you had to expand, and you could do it, but it was tough. Now it's much more responsive. It looks like it ought to look on an iPhone. And that's thanks to Morpheus. So Frank, it's not something you have to purchase. It's just something that, you know, comes with Sakai as a part of the volunteer work of a whole bunch of really smart people in the community. And as Francisco says, it's removing all the iframes. That was an important part of it, building these parameters. But, you know, it's sort of, I think what happened to me was I got a little ahead of where things really were. I sort of went, I assumed that, whoom, we were way out here, and we're still, you know, walking before we run. And I guess maybe one of the purposes of me wanting to talk about this is, but at least let's know what we're running to, what we'd like to get to. And the dream I have is that there would be this, you know, limited handful of parameters that would drive everything and drive it all precisely the same across tools. Oh, here we go. Harold's got it. Morpheus stands for Mobile Optimized Responsive Portal for Higher Education Using SAS. Well, isn't that a mouthful?
Thank you, Harold. I was looking for that too.
That's really good. I will put that in the notes. Hang on. Stands for, and I'm going to replace this here. Bada bing. How's that? Okay. All right. Very good. Any last comments before I let you go? There we go. Okay. There's another click. Let me just copy that and put that into these notes too, Sean.
Yeah, that was the presentation where they first introduced it. The person that was working on it introduced it in 2014.
Okay. You don't know who that was, do you?
Mark Riley, I believe, worked on it.
Okay.
He was a user experience designer at NYU.
Okay.
At the time.
I've talked to some really smart people at NYU. I mean, because of my sort of, shall we say, slightly painful experience with this, I've made some new friends that you know, I met Jolie because of this. I've met new folks at NYU that I didn't know before, and so forth. So that would, you know, how would I get to that window you keep going to add color to different items? Are you talking about, let me make sure I'm talking about the same thing here. Are you talking about this guy here? Is that the one you're looking at, Frank? Okay. Sorry. That's something I built for the LAMP community because I had all these different skins I had to manage. So it's really not something that's out there. This is kind of a special thing that I did, and I wasn't sure if I should show it or not, just because it's basically built to manage multiple skins in the same Sakai instance, which is exactly what we are. But my sense was that's not where most people are. Rarely does a school have more than one or two skins. And so, you know, it's that. It's specific for the LAMP group. Okay, we're just about out of time, and because this last break is kind of short, I think that it might not be a bad idea to let you go and say thanks for being a part of this. We've kind of done what needs to be done next. I will post these notes, and in the slides, if you do happen to go look at them, you'll find that I've put this word appendix in that has some of these other things I've been showing because I wasn't sure if they should be included. So, you know, they're just for your information if you want them, but I will get those. Well, they are already posted, and I'll get the this document posted as well, and I'll let you go. So thanks very much, folks. It was really great having you be a part of this conversation, and I appreciate so many people joining in. That was really great. Sean, a special thanks to you and Jolie for being here and really propping me up. I appreciate it. All right, folks, we'll see you at the next session.